do this. And if you could, I'm going to ask people to subscribe to this show, and to also subscribe to the Facebook page on the screen there, fb.com/star.hills.9, and for further updates about all the stuff that in subsequent shows we'll talk about that's happening with Star in Cannon City. So, but I want to talk about Star Hills and who she is to me. What a great supporter she's been, a great friend, someone, a great deal of understanding, and we go back a ways, don't we, Star?
Yeah, I think a long ways on the internet, maybe
2008.
years. Well, before that, even before you came to stay in my home was in 2009, I believe.
Yes.
Or maybe even the end of 2008. I can't remember, but we were in communication on the internet, perhaps quite a while before that too.
2008 was a big time of awakening for me. I heard about all these things that were going on in the world, and my whole set of beliefs and so forth were just kind of twisted around. There was people like Donna Van Meter in the Oracle Broadcasting Group, that I would talk to and kind of get a better feel of things, and the whole banking industry, and how all that went up was of great interest to me then. And learning the money wasn't backed by gold or silver and anymore, and
we're learning so much about how the monetary system works back then. And since all of these travesties that have embedded themselves in our lives, since we have, you have come up with Remedy Coin, which was a fantastic idea, and anti-money and forgiveness capital, which I fully believe and support you in, that these are transitions out of the monetary system, but there must be some sort of mindset change as to what money even is, and most people don't fully realize that reality yet.
Yeah, here we go. I'm going to play a song. Star is a musician. She's joining us by telephone today. Things have been a little difficult for Star lately, and to say the least. But so this is a way that it doesn't chew up her bandwidth to just basically make a phone call into the show. So that's good. I'm going to play a song for you so you get a little bit of a feel for her. And this is on YouTube. Tell us about this song.
Well, it's a song by Harry Nilsson, and it is out of the cartoon movie The Point back in the 70s. And it's my really hokey, goofy rendition of it. So bear with me. I'm sitting in my school bus back in 2012, I believe, just singing it.
I remember your school bus. I remember you were stripping it and we were painting the inside and stuff. And
bus I had for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, here comes the song.
Write it down. upside down. Thrown over the side, swept over the side, swept, taken to the ocean, taken by the ocean. Who remains by the way? Who grows old? Who grows old? And it's not too good for drink, and it's not too good for drink. But they run, and it pours out from a faucet, and it pours out from a faucet, and it pours into a teapot, and it pours in just about the bubble. Think about your trouble, think about your trouble.
Well, there we go. We had all the bubbles laughing, and or the bubbles bubbling, and the children's voice laughing there at the end. Unfortunately, Star couldn't hear the song while I was playing it. Thank you.
That's okay. I remember recording it.
That was very enjoyable. We've got a lot of pictures rolling through as we're talking. Pictures of you smiling, the cornfield in the back, your lay law sign for the license plate. We've got a picture of your in your house saying all are welcome, or something to that effect, and your artistry. The picture of the world behind you and Goofy on there, and I put one of your signatures like on some of your legal documents. A picture of you on the what's that show that you were on, Wagner? And,
When 1 Second Thought, public access TV.
yeah,
Yeah.
and your family room, your dining room, I should say, and then yeah. So
Beautiful. Yeah, I'm unable, for your audience's information, I'm unable to watch the show as we're doing it live, so I'll have to watch it later.
yeah, but and there you are on camera defending, me and in the media from back in Bakersfield. There's a boat. I've got a picture of one of the boats I think you worked on. There's 2 boats.
I did boat refinishing for many, many years. And,
I remember you showing me your pitch book. You had a book that had a lot of pictures in it of all these boats you worked on, and the beautiful finishery, if I can use that word.
yeah, great work. It's an album I have in my Facebook page, photo album of some of my boat restorations.
Yeah, yeah. And I think,
There are also albums on my Facebook page of my gardens that I've built over the years. Extreme, fantastic food gardens and other herbs and stuff. And albums of my work, albums of my bus, and what befell my bus after I left it behind. And there's a lot of albums of my activism and stuff, and on YouTube, Earthica Star channel also. That's Earthica Star, all one word, on YouTube.
yes. Let's see if I have.
There's video playlists there of kidnappings happening at my house, the foreclosure case, all the court hearings, all kinds of stuff. And playlist of movies.
Oh, Corey is watching, so that's nice to know. Hi, Corey.
Hi, Corey. Hi, my darling sister.
That's great. She might be the only one watching right now, besides me. On the other.
Santos Bonacci may be trying to share the show and get in. I'm not sure.
Oh, great.
He's off.
We've
But
got.
I plan to do a show with him soon too, when I get my own phone.
Yeah. Oh, this is nice.
So I'll just let you lead the way, Joey, and into what's all happening here.
I have some links on the show, and perhaps if you're watching Facebook and a rebroadcast of this show, you'll see a links section at the bottom, like kind of looks like a chain diagonally, and in there are some of the links to your Star's Dorcas Lay channel on YouTube and her Earthica Star YouTube channel, Joe Baker's Remedy Report, in Star Hills on Facebook. There's a link there. And of course, also, this show's brought to you by ForgivenessCapital.com. So I encourage you to, go to those and subscribe. And, we're both like Geminis. And both Star and I are, I think, very expressive people. Star likes to use music a lot to express herself, and occasionally a blowhorn. And as do I. I mean, I don't know. I don't play instruments except maybe the kazoo, but I like to sing.
And tuning forks.
Oh yeah, tuning forks. And this is one of the things that I was so concerned about Star, and some years ago when she was experiencing mold toxicity, and that I was in Acapulco. I think you were in Colorado at the time, or?
I was in Covelo, California, way up in the mountains.
Whoa.
And my brakes had gone out in my motorhome, and it was freezing cold, and it rained for like 5 months. And everything started leaking in my motorhome, and I got so sick that I was literally dying, unable to remember anything. I had severe brain fog, and I was just going in and out of the ether field, basically, unable to figure out or do any research on what might be happening to me before I even figured out that my RV was full of mold and killing me, literally. And so, it was a long chain of events that eventually brought me to Colorado and
Yes.
to heal.
And I had been working on ways of bringing health to people, all the way back to like 2009 when I came to your house. I was using these twisted copper rings, and man, we had all kinds of things we were trying out. And but it was hard on me when I was in Acapulco and you were up there in Northern California, because I felt helpless, like I couldn't do anything for you there. So it drove me to use these remote technologies, like using a tuning fork. And apologize if anybody feels this in an uncomfortable way. It won't last long. I'll stop right away. And that's a tuning fork. And if you can feel it in your body in some way, well, that means there's traumas from the past that are feeling it and vibrating it in a very unusual way for you. Well, so I learned how to do that remotely, and worked on Star with the tuning fork in a remote fashion, and then I developed ways of doing ozone therapy remotely. And these things seem to have a marginal uh, a marginal success rate. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
I want to mention when you first came to my home 14 years ago that before you even walked in my house, you got out of your car, set up a cloud buster in my front yard, and busted and put a hole in the clouds, and also walked up to me and Alan on the front porch and put your, you call them tensor rings,
Yeah.
coiled rings around our necks, and you had some sort of crystal copper device that you were waving around in front of us, and we were getting all energized. This was my first meeting of you before you came in the house.
Oh, I was so excited. I drove from Wisconsin where things were getting a little inhospitable to me, and and came out there, and you guys welcomed me with
Not
open
there to
arms.
help us with our computers and our setting up our law office essentially in my what was prior my a recording studio where I recorded a lot of my music all by myself, songs I'd written, and playing all the parts and overlaying stuff on computer. And then we sort of disabled the recording studio and set up a lot of computers and printers, and it turned into a law office fighting these foreclosures and the kidnapping that happened in 2008, where I was assaulted in Marin County, California, and, which should bring us to the current kidnapping a few weeks ago here in Colorado.
Yeah. So I guess what I can say is that I know Star to be a person who respects the humanity in others and defends it in others. And she's like, there was a fellow named Greg who got it. Maybe you can talk a little bit about Greg and
Yeah, Greg
and
was,
how you.
he was stopped on vacation with his wife and 4 daughters in Ohio on vacation on their way back to Indiana, and he essentially was trying out newfound philosophies in free man, uh, actions, and the troopers dragged him out of his car and arrested him. His wife and daughters had to go back to Indiana on their own. They held him for 10 days just for speeding with $100,000 bond. You can see the videos on my YouTube channel of, my channel has the pinned video of me calling the Crawford County in Ohio, and after making that call, that's what autoplays on my Earthica Star channel. And after I made that call, after he had been in jail for 10 days, they couldn't get him out of that jail fast enough, and they dropped all the charges and gave him a little bit of money to get home. Greg, since he actually died of a heart attack 2 years later in the midst of a Skype call that we were on together.
Oh, that's tragic.
It's pretty wild.
It's it's very unusual when people start thinking outside of the box, particularly policy enforcers. tend to get a little bit, enraged, and they do things. Um, they let that rage kind of control them. What I would like, and I don't know how you feel about this, Star, um, and I haven't really discussed it with you, but I feel people like you and I who've been, assaulted by police officers in ways that really disrespect our humanity. We have perhaps a lot to share with people who would be policy enforcers and stuff, like classes or something. They say that these police, are supposed to be trained to deal with things, but we know they're not even taught that they could be liable for the actions that they do. They feel that
No, they're not at all, and that's by design because, if they actually knew anything about the law, they wouldn't be in that business in the first place. And they're only programmed, just like a computer and like robots, to only go by a script and to escalate situations without any common sense or self, knowledge of what they're doing. And, I firmly believe that they are probably being given frequencies in their vehicles and stuff that is keeping them in a heightened state of, escalation. Plus they have protocols within their script that they cannot veer from to escalate situations into a violent encounter and to entrap you. And in this recent case, which we haven't really touched on yet, where 3 weeks ago I was essentially kidnapped by agents just sitting in front of the school picking up some raw milk from a teacher who was in school, and she leaves it in her trunk for us to pick up each week, and we return the empty bottles. And I was just sitting in my partner's van, not even paying attention to what he was doing behind me, just getting the milk out of her trunk. And I didn't realize that her trunk was locked. And he was texting her at the school trying to see if she could come out and unlock it for us. And so we were kind of sitting in front of the school, and maybe it looked a little suspicious to the security there. And the next thing I know, there's a cop standing at the side door of the van talking to Cole. And I didn't hear what they were saying prior to me even noticing that she was there. And the first time I turned around and saw her there, she looked me dead in the eyes and she said, "Can I see your ID?" And I replied to her, "That's none of your business." In other words, I don't have any contracts with you or business with you. And then she ordered me to step out of the van, and I think she said something about that we were under suspicion for maybe watching children or something like that, of that sort, because we were sort of double parked in the street behind the car we were picking up the milk from. So I can understand it might have looked a little suspicious to them, but suspicion is imagination. And before we could even answer for ourselves and explain anything to her, although I had no idea if Cole had explained anything to her prior to me noticing her there, and or if she had gotten an ID or anything from him. But the real important thing is that I was just sitting in the starboard seat, which means the opposite of the wheel in the car, in the van. And I'm not the one who put the van there or anything. I'm just an innocent bystander, minding my own business, doing no harm, and just daydreaming about what I might propose to the school board for the dilapidated playground to turn it into permaculture. So I wasn't paying attention really to anything that Cole was doing, getting the milk out. Had no knowledge that he couldn't get the milk because the trunk was locked, or that he was texting the teacher. So anyway, all I know is I see a female agent standing there, kind of agitatedly asking me for ID, and I just told her it was none of her business and that I don't consent to. I have no obligations to identify myself to her. I think I rattled off that I'm a world citizen and not a member of the body politic, and I don't think she understood a word of that, or nor did she care. Next thing I knew, she had a taser on me, and
We'll get back to the taser in a second.
She didn't hit me with it.
So you have some hearing problems. So it was you described to me that when you turned around and saw this police officer staring you dead in your eye, I know from your past experiences and your experiences of others that you've helped, like myself, that just a police officer can be, the presence of a police officer can be a very traumatic thing for anyone.
Yeah, especially in lieu of being assaulted by them before and then stealing thousands, tens of thousands from me and never receiving that back. And all the injuries that they've caused to me and you and so many others that we know. But there are, we who have laid foundations in our own freedom and staked claims on our own bodies and status outside of the system over the years, which I did an extensive administrative process on 35 different government agencies, including the President, Congress, and the Secret Service, and Immigration, and even the World Court, and the Postmaster General, and several others.
I know you did. I know you did because I saw it. I helped you print it out. I was there helping with, helping with transportation to and from the post office, and in fact, there's a picture that we're showing on the screen that cycles through every now and then when you're standing in a gray suit and you're holding some papers, and those are an example of the paper that you served on those agencies. You were talking about so I know that they didn't respond to you. I know they didn't block your they didn't they had a duty to respond to your claim of right, and they didn't. So you have freed yourself from the body politic, and you have asserted a claim of ownership over your house that they did not contest.
Right, and a maxim of law is a claim undisputed stands as a matter of law. So when someone's silence, another maxim is silence is your acquiescence when otherwise you have a duty to speak or otherwise cause injury. And it's equated with fraud. And fraud voids all contracts, presumed or otherwise.
Mm-hmm. You were talking about the taser.
So the agent, her name was Amanda Winters, the police department in Canyon City, I believe.
Amanda Winters.
Yes. She just got, triggered instantly by me telling her it's none of your business, which is, in fact, the truth. And I also was informing her, how can you morally justify using this kind of force on a peaceful being doing no harm? But she just kept moving forward, threatening to taser me. And I believe that, at that point, I tried to start my camera, which I was successful in, but I felt like I was being hit with some type of ultra low frequency or something could have been emitted from the taser device. and I started to get real disoriented, um, you know, and it was really difficult to unlock my phone and start the camera. And it turned out when I looked at the footage later, um, that
Yes.
I didn't even have the camera pointed at her. I had it just pointed at the dash or something. But then Cole, as they were handcuffing me, and another couple of officers or agents showed up, and then and one of them said I wasn't under arrest as they were handcuffing me, and then they put me in another vehicle with another man, agent who took me first to the jail, to the hospital to check my handcuffs, where the nurse lied about how tight they were. And um, but as they were putting me in the car at the scene, and I was already handcuffed, the Amanda, the first agent, she rushed up behind me and just cinched the cuffs down on as tight as they could, as if she was trying to cut my hands off, literally, brother. I can't feel them still now. My thumbs and the top of my hands and up to the middle of my forefinger, both hands, are still totally numb with extreme electrical nerve pain in them, hypersensitivity, and inability to hold on to things.
Okay, we've got some people listening, and if I do a little bit of the tuning fork work on your hands, we may be able to help with some of that. I'm going to do that right now. So I'm imagining your hands are here in front of me. This would be your left hand, and the wrist, I suppose, is the part that's the cause of the problem in the hand, right?
Right. When we finally got the handcuffs off, it had been probably, they had probably been cinched down on me for at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. My hands were completely purple. Um, by the time we went to the hospital, and the nurse even lied about that, saying she could slip a finger between the cuffs and my wrist, and that was not true. I confronted her on it right there. Um, she didn't. Why is she lying? Um, Another agent came in to the hospital and forced my fingers onto an electronic device to get my fingerprints, because I gave them no kind of ID or anything. And it was really interesting. He sat there looking at the device for about 10 or 15 minutes, waiting for something to come back. And then he looked up at the transporting or trafficking officer and said, I got nothing. It's like she doesn't even exist.
Yeah. Well, it's not a question of whether you exist or not. It's that they have a fictitious system in place where they think they have all this stuff, and that
Right, but this is off
everybody.
of a fingerprint. This is off of a fingerprint reading.
Right.
And he's like waiting for something to come back, and it's like, I don't even exist. I mean, I had been fingerprinted, in the system. I mean, we all give a fingerprint when we go get a driver's license or whatever, which I haven't had in 14, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
But that was interesting that nothing showed up for a while.
I
I
don't.
heard
I don't remember.
names start.
I don't remember getting fingerprinted for a driver's license. But maybe I've just
Yeah, I think we
forgot.
do. I think we do have to put a thumbprint or something when we go to the place where we do.
Well, I haven't been. I mean, I've got
It's
one.
interesting too when people get a driver's license. Well, in California anyway, I remember they didn't require any form of identification other than a birth certificate, which has no identifying marks and no uh, footprint or fingerprints on them. They're corporate birth certificates. They're not the ones that our parents made when we were born with a footprint on them. And they remove that footprint and then they make a secondary corporate birth certificate for you, which is the one most people go by. And I just find it interesting that when you go to get an ID from them, they don't require anything that identifies you other than this birth certificate with no identifying marks. It's a very, very deceptive thing, and people believe that they are agreeing to that, but they're agreeing to something without full knowledge or information of what they're obliged to when they make those agreements.
Right.
And anything gotten by deception, driver's license or any license, is void due to fraud in the inducement. And it's void ab initio from the beginning. So therefore, it never existed at all, and it is a fiction. But people, think that they have to get a license. And a license, by definition, by law, essentially means permission to commit a crime. That's what it boils down to, that all licenses are permission to commit a crime. And who in this earth has the authority to grant anyone permission to commit any crime? Because for something to be made legal, it first must be declared a crime. And then when people get licenses, they get them to have permission to commit these crimes.
Wow, Star. I think that's the best I've ever heard that described. So let me see if I can say that again. In order for something to be made legal, it first has to be illegal.
Right. It has to be declared a crime.
And
so
no one has the right to legalize a crime.
Right. Or to give anyone permission to commit that crime.
And if
such as a license to grow cannabis. And by the way, licenses do not belong to you. They are all in the all capital fictitious name, which is a title of a storybook, and they all belong to the agencies who issue them, and you are just paying them a user fee for that license, which declares your property actually theirs. That's why they can come tow your car away and drive you into court and all these other things, because you have contracted with them. And people don't realize those contracts are void once they understand that they were gotten by deception, and that is fraud, that there was no meeting of the minds or fully informed contract, which voids all contracts.
I love it. This is so good. I've always loved how you think outside the box, how you kind of challenge some of the things in the world that seem to be the way everybody seems to be doing things. But this has led to an incredible personal cost to you. There's been a lot of, I would say, suffering, that you've experienced along these lines. And I just want to say, thank you to you for, living authentically and and trying to teach others about it.
Well, I spent a lot of years studying a lot of different methodologies and sovereignty and free man on the land and creditors in commerce and all these different philosophies, which I don't wholly dismiss, but they're all straddle positions, a lot of them. In other words, they're still using these licenses and contracts trying to apply them to their private lives in and out of commerce. And people have to understand what commerce is. The whole system is based in a monetary usury system. And all contracts with government are based in money. And this is why it's so important that we understand what money truly is, and that there are solutions to creating a different type of acknowledgement system to each other to remove this system of oppression, scarcity, and poverty that's making profit for those in control of it, and move our mindset as a collective worldwide into a system of regarding each other's infinite wealth, as in your anti-money construct, to give the whole world a benefit on it, put everybody on an equal standing of value and what their life energy is worth, and how they can basically just use forgiveness to endorse each other's life value and energy value. Gary Davis, who became the first declared nationless world citizen in the French Parliament in 1948, and then in 1953 he created the world passport. Gary also created what is called a kilowatt dollar, and it's very similar to anti-money. It's based on people's energy value and a way to trade amongst ourselves. And my philosophy is that with these types of constructs, we can shift the mindset to a world without money, such as Jacques Fresco's Venus Project ideas. A world without government money, and based on trust and value and voluntariness and knowing ourselves and honoring each other's values, and so there's a lot that I'd look into all of that stuff. And I also I just posted on my Facebook page last night the first introduction of the book I'm writing, Earthican Toolkit, lay law, I believe it is, and the introduction is legalese. And I posted the first 2 pages of my book that I'm compiling.
I love it.
And it lays it all out there, how they entrapped us.
I started reading it, and I don't know, I probably read about 2, it's not really in paragraph structure, but about 2 or 3 paragraphs worth I read. And I was like, oh, this is good stuff. And I just kind of skimmed through. You have a wealth of knowledge, Star, and I think that's great. Thank you for sharing some of the things today. Again, if you're listening today and this is the first time you know about Star, find her on Facebook, and the link is on the screen, fb.com/star.hills.9. And, for a while, get it so you get all her notifications, because she's really going to need a lot of public support here in maybe the next month or 2. We want to be listening carefully for those types of things. I know I've kind of muted you for a while, Star, and I've apologized to you for that. But you're back on, so I'm getting your notifications now. At least I think I'm open to that, and I've been trying to set it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for the other thing that is that Star and I have agreed to this thing called the Forgiveness Public License, where we've agreed to forgive each other for anything, and to be able to monetize that if we need to, and that's been a really powerful thing. I mean, you think about, the infinite power of the infinite value of human beings. We've basically established an infinite trust in doing that, and so it's remarkable. There's maybe 10 people I can think of, if I think hard enough, that I've actually established that kind of relationship with. And Star, I think you're the second one in that list.
Well, because so many people are just rooted in running this hamster wheel to survive, and their whole lives are motivated on how they're going to survive and pay their bills and get money, and it's all rooted in money. And when when we're assaulted by this system and they steal everything from us and handicap us in so many ways, and they give us no remedies, no due process in court. Like in this current situation, they held me in jail for 15 days and gave me absolutely no due process of law, and just railroaded me and tortured me in there too. It was absolute psychological warfare and terrorism, but and extreme injury. But so Joey, I have to commend you for creating Remedy Report out of when you were assaulted and getting no remedy in the courts. And it's a brilliant idea to offer them forgiveness and by them accepting your forgiveness, even if it's by their silence, because silence is acquiescence. They agree that we can monetize those damages, and they're also validating that they damaged us to that tune of that amount. And then you can create a crypto to get relief based on that forgiveness, that they have validated that, yes, they damaged you to the tune of $2 quadrillion, because that's what your life is worth. And when our lives are threatened, what is that going to cost them? And if they do indeed end up taking our lives, they could go to prison for life or even get the death penalty.
And what I've figured out is that they do not have enough money to remedy the damages they've caused. And their system, even though it's based on debt, they can't create $1 quintillion worth of damage of value to remedy that. So, our freedom is our property. It is something we have. Your 15 days where they've taken away your freedom, your liberty, I don't know if that's the word to use, is incredibly valuable. I value my hours where they put me in captivity at $85,000 an hour, and then I charge $1 million a day for warrants with my name on it.
Right, and I stated to the officers or the agents at the scene of this last encounter, all through, as they were handcuffing me and assaulting me, I was stating to them that they were in violation of Title 18 fraud, impersonating officers under color of law, which is the presumption of law and has no authority whatsoever. They're acting as foreign agents. And I also stated to them many times during the actual kidnapping that by continuing their actions, they agree. By their continued actions, they agree. This is very important to understand. To pay me in lawful silver $10 million for each assault. And this is on the record. At one point, Amanda Winters, the original agent with the taser, and I stated to her that by continuing to advance on me, that you agree to pay me 10 million lawful silver dollars. And she said, that's fine. And it's interesting. And that's all going to be on the body cams and on cameras and stuff. And a lot of that is uploaded in my posts on Facebook about this incident. But when she said that's fine, the word fine in that context means she agrees to pay me whatever fine they try to attach to me over this whole incident, on top of the 10 million lawful silver dollars.
Yeah, I had a judge when I told him I charged $85,000, and he ordered the bailiff to take me out of the room. I told him I charged $85,000 an hour, and he said okay.
Right. So essentially, Amanda agreed to my terms, and she continued her actions, which solidified the contract, which she agreed to orally also by saying that's fine.
Yes.
And which is on
Well, it's a strange. I thank you so much for getting into this and kind of talking about the need for remedy and the need to come up with it in in other ways and accepting the ideas. I mean, at least the forgiveness stuff that I've been working to bring about.
I also want to commend you for your traveling all over the world to crypto conventions, pushing your remedy coin and forgiveness capital and anti-money ideas to the crypto savvy community who still really can't wrap their heads around your ideas because they are still motivated by money. And it's going to take a huge shift in the mindset before we can transition out of that into another way of honoring each other's values and get on with things, and anti-money is such a great idea, and I just want to commend you for doing all that you've. Where did you go? Zurich, Acapulco, Malta, Las Vegas, Amsterdam, I believe.
Mm-hmm. San Francisco.
Yeah, you have been all over it, Joey, and I just have so much admiration and respect for you, brother.
I
and
feel
all of you do for me
I feel
in situations.
I feel I could have spent my money a little better when I had it in different ways. Just reaching out to people online, all that travel, man. It burned up. It burned up money, and Bitcoin went down in price so hard at that point, and all the cryptos did. But it was wonderful. People would tell me at these conventions, it's the most what I was talking about was the most interesting thing of anything they had seen at the conventions.
Right, and there's a lot of fear out there too, just surrounding the whole idea of cryptos. A lot of people who aren't really knowledgeable about cryptos, are live in a lot of fear that it's the same. It's going to be the same thing as the one world currency, and how they're going to get us all to a digital currency and the mark of the beast and all that kind of stuff. And I understand their fears and concerns. It's the same thing with the world passport and world citizenship that Gary Davis, enacted back in the 40s and 50s. And a lot of people have fear of that being a new world order, world government construct, whereas, I have my reservations still about that, although I became very good friends with Gary Davis over the years, and who's also passed away at 92 years old, I believe, in 2013. But uh, they still have the World Service Authority in Washington, D.C., where they issue world passports. A lot of people have fear that this is world, the tyrannical world government taking over, and it's not. It's a way that we can all declare nationless status and members of the whole world community without borders. And it's a world government of, by, and for the people of the world in alliance with each other. We're not governing over anyone else but ourselves. And these are documents to declare that. And they are rooted in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which also, by the way, is the standard, the USA standard of human rights, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That is the standard by which their laws are, and stuff is enacted regarding human rights. It's the standard they must adhere to.
Couple things from the chat room and people watching. Emily's out there. I know Emily's been very helpful to you. And Aunt
Hi,
Vex.
Emily,
And you might say that again because it didn't come through.
I just said hi, Emily, my love.
Oh, sweet. And then Aunt Ivax, a clever name, says, I will have a look at your channel, Star. I've got some coconut cream to make the lovely cacao and ginger drink you mentioned. Hope to hear more lovely creations like this. I hope you're okay, Star.
Oh, thank you. And you can see in my Facebook albums also, and on YouTube, um, many albums of my gardens and my concoctions and food, manna, and all kinds of stuff like that. Pictures. I also, another book I'm compiling will be a recipe book, and it'll be Mother Earthica's edible bouquets.
Nice. Very nice.
And I also have another project which I'm trying to manifest, which will be a food truck without licenses and all that stuff on it, and be able to travel, do a tour. A Food is Free would be Rob Greenfield style, if you want to look him up. He did this Food is Free project and stuff. It would be based on that and feeding the homeless out of a grocery store outdated foods and produce stands and like we're doing now lately, we're getting chicken scraps, which are the organic produce from the organic food stores, and we're feeding the chickens, but we're also feeding ourselves through them. And it's just wonderful. They give us boxes and boxes of, one time they gave us 10 bags of cherries that were organic, and there's nothing wrong with them. They just have to take them off the shelves after their dates are expired. And yeah, we've been eating really well out of mostly the chicken scraps from the natural grocers.
I know Anti-vax, I think is how it's said, is well, somebody in the thing out here, I know it does Reiki. If you're, oh, you mentioned you had a healing session yesterday.
The day before, yes, with Sophia Tanya Love,
Oh,
and
nice.
she is amazing, amazing natural law aficionado and helping behind the scenes to get some processes on my behalf into the courts, and also Jamie Diaz, who's working on some administrative stuff for me, and of course Alan David, who is going at it procedurally and positively to get the case dismissed before the court hearing, hopefully, which is October 28th in Canyon City.
October
Right
28th.
now, right now I'm just, they let me go on personal recognizance, and, but with a $5,000 fine and a threat of a warrant if I don't appear. We're trying to get it dismissed and get them to just, peacefully get out of it, because they're going to be in a lot of trouble too when all comes out in the wash if they don't just make it disappear. Because they act too hastily with violence and force before they don't know the law. They don't know what they're bound to. They're acting upon lesser oaths to a Colorado state, constitution rather than the U.S. Constitution, which they took their superseding oaths to, which is by the consent of the governed only. So if you don't consent, you don't have any oaths to that, but that's what they're bound to. That's what they must follow. And so acting under color of law is acting under a secondary authority, which is a presumption of authority, and it's under color of law. And it's fraud, according to federal law.
So, help us with an example of understanding color of law.
Well, a lot of that is written in my introduction to my book, but it sort of lays it out how.
Should I pull that up?
You could. I don't know. It's just too full, like office pages of information. It might be a little bit hard for people to really wrap their heads around.
Let me see if I could.
How
take a
they
stab at it.
interacted.
And
Okay.
so,
Go ahead.
A color of law might be like a speed limit on a road, where their legislature maybe enacted laws about going a certain speed or whatever, but they really don't have jurisdiction perhaps to do that. I don't know.
It's because those legislations only deal in commerce, which is buying and selling and using the roads for trafficking, shipping, and transporting passengers, goods, and services. And people don't understand what commerce means. Commerce means buying and selling. It does not mean buying or selling. That is your private business. And unless you are agreed through licenses to commit crimes, you are not in commerce. Just because you are forced to use their monetary system, other than your own skills and offerings and gifts and donations, that is outside of commerce. All of their laws deal with persons, which are a corporation. They do not mean the same thing in legalese that we use them in our common language. Legalese is a foreign language to all of us. That's why I said in the court to the judge this time that she informed me of the charges, and then I told her I don't understand, meaning I don't stand under those because I have not been informed in my native language. She asked me what my native language was, and I said Common English. I don't understand legalese. At that point, she asked me if she would like me for her to provide me with a interpreter, and I said that would be appreciated. And the next thing I know, the public defender is standing next to me, just assuming to stand in my stead. She didn't even understand what the judge meant by appointing an interpreter, not a representative. But she just assumed the position as being my attorney now. And so she was appointed to interpret legalese for me, which she never did, ever at all, which means she disobeyed the court order to do so. And she, even when I met with her privately in the jail, through a window over a phone, and I explained to her, "You're not. I'm not authorizing you to stand in my stead. But in lieu of that, they've held me in here for 2 weeks, and they're running roughshod over you. I'm going to allow you to say what I tell you to say to the judge, and that is that I work for free. In other words, I'm not in commerce at all in any way, shape, or form, and that nullifies all of their presumptions and color of law. I have no contracts with them, and I have no, I don't consent to anything they do." So I made that clear to the public defender. And when I asked her to explain, to interpret the legalese of what the charges were, and asked her where she got her information of what happened, she said, "Well, I got it from them, the officers and whatever's in the record." And she just continued, and she didn't want to hear my side of the story at all. And she did not interpret anything to me because she doesn't even know Common English. All she knows is legalese. And but I told her that another thing was that she will not enter any pleas for me at all, and that she will only maintain my 100% innocence.
Innocence.
Right, innocence. Whereas they never give you the option of pleading innocence, even though it says in their laws that you are innocent until proven guilty. They don't offer you that. What they offer you is not guilty or guilty as a plea. The reason that they use not guilty rather than innocence is because not guilty lessens their burden of proof of guilt. Innocence makes it much harder for them to prove your guilt. So that is another deception and trick that they use to entrap you, because it lessens their burden to prove you guilty. They do not offer you innocence as an option. That's why I told her she's not to plead anything for me. Pleading is begging, and I'm not begging anyone for anything. I am maintaining my 100% innocence, which makes their burden of proof of guilt much more difficult. And she did a pretty good job, although she did just speak legalese in court, and although she did state to the judge that I work for free as a musician, a private chef, and gardener, and I accept no money. I only work voluntarily and for whatever people donate back to me.
Beautiful.
And you know that I've lived that way for many, many years. And
yes, and I get that. I so much we've interacted and spoken with each other about a lot of these ideas. I think you're the first person to ever make me consider a world without money, and and I want to thank you for that. And I've
Yeah,
viewed.
I highly encourage people to look into Jacques Fresco too. Although he died at 100 years old and spent 80 something years of his life developing a social construct to, uh, a different way of living based on no government, no poverty, and no money. A voluntary system. A lot of it is, I don't align with a lot of his technology, but I align with the spirit of his ideas. And he's a very brilliant inventor. And, um, I believe wholeheartedly in the Venus Project um, idealism.
I remember you were trying to get me to look into that, and I never really did. I mean, although the things you would say about it, uh, resonated with me. So
Right. And then our friend Luke, he went on a peace walk,
yeah,
pulling a cart for a year of his life, just in awareness to the Venus Project mainly. And he lived on the Venus Project prototype land in Venus, Florida, for a time, and he even went there to help them after the hurricanes destroyed the place. And after Jacques had passed away just a few years ago, and he lived there to help for a time to help them clean up after the hurricane and refurbish the prototype buildings, which remained. The forests around it and jungle got destroyed by the hurricane, but the buildings that Jacques designed stayed intact. They did get some flooding in them, and Luke helped to clean it up, and other people. And Luke also wrote a bunch of songs, an album geared toward the Venus Project and their ideas.
so what's next for you, Star? What kind of things are you hoping to do, or places to go, and
Well, I have all these ideas for projects for Food is Free project, feeding the homeless and traveling around, providing information for people to exit the system and find other ways to live outside of the monetary system and, volunteer, accept, gifting, a more gifting mindset and accepting donations, to document all that, maybe do some live streams, get some sponsored support on doing things like this, to be able to, keep feeding them nutritious, whole foods and learn about their health and other things historically about this world that have been cultured from our consciousness.
anti-vax says exiting the system sounds good. Corey says this is so good. Love all of you and your support of my sister. Anti-vax says you're a beautiful star inside and out. Much love to you. Keep shining bright. Thank you all for tuning in and listening. And just I think we need to send um, intentions of protection and
Yes, I also, I've wanted to get down to Mexico to Santos Bonacci's Syncretism Academy, and perhaps I can align with that in some way, even if I, can't get to Mexico because they may not let me across the border, or if I ever do make it there, I would probably not be allowed back into the U.S. with my world citizen documents, but maybe. I do know people who only use world passport as their ID, and they have traveled, but since the quackademic happened, they've really tightened down on traveling identifications and stuff. I mean, I'm not even able to get through an airport or get on a plane with my internally in the U.S. with my world
Well,
IDs, and I don't want to travel on a plane anyway, so I don't care. But
maybe if
uh,
there's three people that would travel with you, you know, three. What is it? Three people have the power and effect of a notary public. Um,
right,
you
I
could.
might do some shows too with Santos on syncretism. So I'd like to encourage everyone to subscribe to him also, and he's also Mr. Astrotheology on YouTube and syncretism uh, on YouTube, and then he's Santos Bonacci on Facebook.
Let me see if I can type that into the show notes.
And I hope to, in the future, um, do some shows or be an instructor into sovereignty, essentially, and natural law, and perhaps health and permaculture in the Syncretism Academy, which might generate some resources for me too. It's not a lot, but you can also go to Santos's. It's Freedom School, I believe, freedomschool.com. I'm not sure. You'll find links to that on his pages and channels.
SYNCHROTISM YouTube. Well, good. I got that on at
No,
least in the
uh,
comments.
yeah. People can also find on my Earthica Star channel on YouTube the playlist and videos called Sovereign Woman Kidnapped, which gives you a lot of information. It's set to the ambiance of a interview I did with Michael Badnarik back in 2008, and also Michael Badnarik wrote the book It's Good to Be King about sovereignty. He teaches the Constitution. He ran for president in 2004, I believe. He was the president of the Constitutional Congress in 2009, I believe, or 10. I'm not sure. And he interviewed me on his radio show, Lighting the Fires of Liberty, in 2008 regarding my kidnapping. And I made this video, Sovereign Woman Kidnapped, set to that interview. Also, Randy Kelton from Rule of Law joined us, and Steve Skidmore from Endless Fraud Detection joined us on that show. And it's an interesting show and has a lot of, well, it's an interesting video. I sensationalized it for the sake of art, but so it would be boring.
Did you know Michael
But
Badnarik passed away recently?
no, I didn't. I
Yeah,
was just trying
sorry.
to contact him, and I didn't even realize that. That's unfortunate and sad.
Yeah.
So my
I,
condolences to everyone who knew him and loved him, and is a very dear friend.
yeah, I'm just trying to find
He
out
was
if I
also
can. I,
he, he was also a nuclear physicist,
wow.
which I had many conversations with him, just disputing the existence of nuclear fusion and fission.
Wow.
You might remember also that I was instrumental behind the scenes with Anthony Hilbert, who is essentially, for all intents, and he has passed away now too. He was very good friends with Jordan Maxwell, and Jordan would even contend that Anthony is the one who opened his eyes up to the, whole Illuminati ideas back in the 60s. Anthony is considered the godfather of Illuminati expose, and he's check out his information. I believe, worldalliance.com, maybe. But anyway, I was instrumental in many of his documentaries as a researcher and behind, sort of a ghostwriter for him and researcher.
Wow. I do remember we met him at a
At a park one time in LA.
no. I remember meeting him at I don't know if that
Oh,
was the year you went
at Conspiracy Con.
Conspiracy
We also,
Con.
in 2009.
Uh, yeah, I remember we went in 2009 together. I don't remember meeting Anthony Hilder that time, but you introduced me to the Judge fellow, Alfred Lambermont Weber, and
Right. We
I've
interviewed him.
I ran camera while you interviewed him.
Right. And let me also enter that Alfred Lambermont Weber is an international magistrate trained at Yale. He was a sitting judge on two tribunals, one in Malaysia, which was war crimes for 9/11, and they convicted George Bush, both of the Bushes, I believe, and Tony Blair and Dick Cheney and stuff for war crimes against humanity. He was also a sitting judge on the Vancouver War Crimes Tribunal, the People's Tribunal for 9/11, something like that, where they also, I believe, convicted all these people in absentia.
Yeah,
Which nothing came of course, because, people, who's going to go arrest them, which
right.
was one of the reasons is going to step up and go against all of their forces and military forces and Templars and,
They have
corporations.
protection from from
Right.
somewhere.
So even though it is whole panels of international magistrates all convicted them in two different war crimes tribunals, they are still walking free.
Well, I hope everyone gets a sense of of who Star Hills is and what her life has been and the cost, that she's had to endure for living outside the box, and living, according to how her conscience um, sees fit to do. And so, I attest to her honor, to her, um, to her love for humanity, um, to her deep dedication to understanding systems of how people might interact in a better, more ethical way. And anyway, I kind of just want to go on the record, saying I stand with Star.
I also just want to put in here that Alfred Weber, Lambermont, he also wrote the book Exopolitics,
Yes.
which is the politics of space, essentially. He also erected the Children's Treaty for Peace in Space. And he is also a world citizen, member of the World Citizen Government. And also, Carol Rosin is also a world citizen, and she was in the UFO Disclosure Project. She was also secretary to Werner von Braun, and she is on the World Government Sovereign Guard administration.
Wow. What's her name?
Carol Rosin. You'll remember her when you see her, who she is. She was part of the Disclosure Project, which I think is all a sort of controlled opposition too.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot of CIA stuff going on in the UFO
yeah,
stuff
she's
today.
ex-CIA also. She's also ex-CIA, top security.
Well, that sounds good. I'm gonna have to look into that world passport thing again and maybe get some of that. I've been enjoying getting all this ID stuff, but whenever I sign it, I always put the endorsement on it, UTDC, for under threat, duress, and coercion. Then I add two more letters, ID for indoctrination and disinformation. No,
Another good,
deception.
another good, another good thing to, in anytime someone wants you to sign anything that you didn't create yourself and trying to force you to contract with them without full disclosure or deception, anything that they hand you is without full disclosure and deception, and therefore it's fraud. So anytime even if you think that you are voluntarily applying for something like a license or anything, sign it V. C. That means vi coactus, and it voids the document.
VI, and
VI
coactus. Yeah.
COACTUS, I believe. And you can look that up, the law definition of vi coactus. It means that it was gotten by fraud and voids it.
Yeah.
And it's quicker than writing UTDC or writing out the words under threat, duress, and coercion or any of that. It basically puts all that in a nutshell.
Yeah, when you're
I didn't use DEC on my trip through the system this time in their booking, but I did put UTDC on everything and all rights reserved. And maintained orally to every single person. Every time in the jail that they'd force us into lockdown several times a day. So that means out of the common jail cell block, and we are supposed to lock ourselves down in our individual cells. And so every time that they did that, I would state to them, everything was on camera in there and whatever. Every time we were forced to be locked down, I would say, thank you, under threat and duress. And then I would lock myself in the cell. And every communication I had with them was under threat and duress and no consent, and all along the way. I mean, I tried to stay positive while I was in there and dance and do rope flow exercises, and just
In there for hours. What are you doing?
just stay positive as I could. They made me eat food that was really damaging me, that I'm highly allergic to. Every single thing that they fed me. I only practiced therapy the first 3 days I was incarcerated. But then I had to start eating something. I was just getting really, really ill from all the mycotoxins. And plus inside it's very ambient and echoes, and they just blast very loud, violent TV shows at you and movies, super violent, and all related to being in jail or bondage, really sick videos that they play on the TV, and they blast them high, so loud you can't hear anything in there. Everything echoes because it's all concrete and brick walls, and there's screaming people in the background in other cells and beating on doors. And oh my God, when the metal doors open or close, especially, it sounds like a shotgun going off. It's so loud, and it just creates a startle reaction every single time it happens. It was very hard to maintain my own frequency field and stay in a I tried to sing softly to myself in 432 frequency, and just exercise and dance and bring up the try to edify the other women who are incarcerated in there, who had no understanding of who they are. It's just they drag them up. They were mostly knew each other, the other women in there, from living under bridges, and they're mostly drug addicts, and they dish out drugs to them in there, hard drugs, and they just scoop them off the streets, and they keep them in there for profit because they get paid for every 24 hours someone is in there, and they keep them on drugs, and they're feeding them some kind of Kool-Aid, which they would all line up at my door to get the Kool-Aid from me because I wouldn't touch it. And they're really zombified, and it's a psychological operation with all the noise and the blasting of things and keeping them on drugs, and they're just walking around like zombies, completely indoctrinated and descending the system too. So it's quite an experience.
I know, Star, from your experience of mold toxicity, that you were hearing sounds in your head. Every sound you'd hear would be like an echo chamber as well. And I can't, I'm seeing the similarity here that you're experiencing this in the concrete cells of a jail.
Right. And
yeah.
Also, even after I got out for several days, I'm still hearing it. It's still ambient in the frequency field. It's still audible to me. All of that noise and echoing, and plus it was a mycotoxic attack being in there, and brought me back into that state of brain fog and echoing in my head, and the tapping. All the percussive noises were amplified, and yeah, I'm finally starting to come out of that, especially with the healing therapy I did with Sophia a couple days ago. Really helped. Oh my gosh.
So you let them know that you were allergic to sugar and some of these other things. They asked you grains.
Yeah, everything.
And,
most
basically,
sugar, grains, and nuts, which is all they feed.
Basically, that's what they fed you. Was all the stuff you were you had sensitivities to.
Right, and another thing which you already know of, I kept sending communications to the medical staff in the jail, demanding that they, give me something that's not toxic to me. And I met with the nurse at one point, but I didn't allow them to take any bodily fluids or give them any authority to examine me, but just to be a witness and document what I'm telling them, that I'm allergic to everything. And at one point, one of the medical staff who dishes out the drugs to the girls and comes to the jail door, cell door, and I stated to him that this food is causing me severe mycotoxic reactions. And he says to me, well, you'll have to take that up with the chefs. And I said to him, really? I'm telling this to a doctor, and you're telling me that I have to take this up with the chefs in the prison? Like they're going to be responsible for my health? Man, it is such a railroad freaking kangaroo job in there. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, we're sorry that you had to experience this and this all. the taser. I'm not sure we ever got back to the taser. About, yeah, we did. You did. You talked about how it made you feel disoriented, even though they hadn't activated the taser component. There was something they activated, which made it you disoriented, and made it very difficult for you to start your phone.
Yeah, I can't believe I actually managed to. Then I had it pointed at me or something else rather than pointed at them.
And with your permission, I'll post some of those on my channel. Um,
Right, those actual videos from the stop, and also all the calls from the jail were recorded and uploaded, and there comments that Cole posted on Facebook and that I posted, and I will leave the pinned post of the whole incident and leaving Cole's post and all of those audios and a whole bunch of more information on law. I'll leave that pinned on my Facebook page, but I took it off so that your show would show up at the top for now.
I saw that, and earlier, about, I don't know, 20 minutes ago, I posted the link to this show in there so they can get right to it.
Oh, great. Thank you.
In the comments of that post. It's not easy to know exactly what the link is to the broadcast until you go live. And
I also want to say here that my hands are still very injured. This has been, 7 days maybe since I've been out now. And from the handcuffs being so tight, and I can't feel the tops of my hands are completely numb, both thumbs in both hands, and numb to the middle of my forefingers on both hands and the whole top of my hand. And they have electrical nerve type of sensations and pain and hypersensitivity in my fingertips. A lot of pain in my fingertips when I touch anything, and they're very clumsy, and I'm unable to really be of much use to myself. I'm also sort of being displaced again by my community here, or they're telling us to leave here after they were the ones who went in and gave them an address for me at the courts. I didn't give them anything, and they thought they were helping, and I know that they truly meant to help and assure them that I had a place to live. I'm not just homeless under a bridge, but essentially I'm only staying here as a guest. And now, because I can't put words or thoughts in their minds, but I assume that due to their indoctrination and endearment to their patriotic ideas of citizenship and so on, and they're not aligned with my world status or my own claims of right, that they are trying to attach me into their way of thinking, which is, well, we have to pay taxes and we use money and you use money, so what do you mean by that you don't, they don't understand that I only use the monetary system by force due to lack of any other option, and people's indoctrination that they keep each other in line and hooked into that whole construct.
Yeah.
So in a sense, they're trying to insist that, well, you are a citizen of the U.S. and, this kind of thing. It's just coming from their own indoctrination, and they feel that by me being high profile and vocal on all of this, that I'm bringing something down on them and their property here.
Essentially,
I'm not the one who, but they're the one who gave them this address, not me. I didn't give them this address to protect them.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought they were giving it to them, this address, to protect me. I understand that. They thought they were helping get out of there,
I mean, it's hard for people to understand that that essentially, participating in a government as a citizen is imposing acts of violence upon everybody else. I mean, not only the citizens in your country, but all the other people in the world that your country, has a military impact on.
Exactly, because there is no real vote unless no vote is valid unless it's unanimous. That people are under the indoctrination that voting is, more than one or more than 50% of the people all getting together and then agreeing to a certain, member of their government, mind control, and that everyone else, if they voted and that's the way it went in their favor, that now everyone else should be forced to be under that system. But the problem is that no individual man or woman has any authority over any other individual to tell them or make them do anything unless they witness them commit a crime and have proof and evidence and willing to testify under penalty of perjury. But no one has authority over anyone else. So therefore, voting does not give anyone authority to give to someone else to wield over you, such as government. So if you don't have authority yourself, you don't have authority to give to someone else. And this is what voters don't understand, that they are committing tyranny upon their brothers and sisters and forcing them to follow this tyrannical rule.
And collectives have no more authority than an individual.
That's right. And even the governments do not act upon superseding Supreme Court decisions. They don't use a lawful money system, which is only declared by Congress, only silver and gold. And they use Federal Reserve notes, or it's a note dollar conversion racketeering scheme, and usury and mind control. Only silver and gold are lawful money, and people would do well to wrap their heads around that whenever they ask you to pay a fine or pay taxes or anything else, offer them gold and silver. And Joey, I'll let you maybe explain the Credit Rivers Township case, where a judge ruled that against the bank that
they've
only silver or gold is lawful money.
Yeah.
Remember that?
I do. I love telling the story. So I think it was a justice of the peace, and there was a judge that was out on vacation. So the justice of the peace was filling in. They had a jury trial, and this is like in a county courthouse over a foreclosure, and the owner of the cottage that was being foreclosed on was an attorney who didn't like, he didn't like the whole Federal Reserve and the debt-based money system, as I can portray it all. So they kind of set this whole thing up, and they got a jury to rule that the Federal Reserve Act was unconstitutional, the National Banking Act was unconstitutional, and when the bank that lost the foreclosure, put their in their appeal, they had to put I think a $20 bill in as
$2.
$2.
They were ordered to pay the judge granted them their appeal that they had to pay the $2 filing fee. This is back in the 60s. They had to pay it in lawful silver coin, and they couldn't do that. Wow. And so they couldn't appeal it. And then, from what I understand, some time went by and the judge was found dead in the river.
Yeah, it was a boating trip or something, and they made it look like he drowned, but the autopsy found that he was poisoned. Um, the judge that ruled against the bank.
Right. So let that be a lesson to you, judges. Don't rule against the bank, because you are the bank. That's what you're doing, sitting on the bench. The bench represents the bank. And you never go against your allegiances to them.
I think
That's
the court. I think of the court as if it is a bank itself, and
that's what it is.
when
Yes.
whenever they write a bond and some of this stuff, they're issuing new money as debt, and they're using the infinite worth of a person. Oh, she just dropped off the call. Maybe that all went. Anyway, keep close attention, everybody, to our feed, to Star's Facebook page. Let's see, do I have that up here? I can put that up. There's Star's Facebook page, fb.com/star.hills.9. And let's see, I don't know if I can call her back. We've covered so much territory here, and I want to send some money, to spend some money on this show to promote it, so that people in that city are going to see this show pop up over and over and over again, to raise awareness that there's a real jewel in their presence, and see if we can't, get a lot of support for her to show up on the court days that happen. That we are interested, we are watching what's going on. We demand that Star gets remedy for what's happened to her. Hi, Star.
Hi. Yeah. Sorry, my the phone went dead because I thought I had it plugged into a power strip, but the power strip wasn't on.
Yeah, that happens. So I was just saying that I want to really, get this message, try to saturate that market, let people know there's a real gem in their presence, and that I really want to see you get remedy for what has happened to you by those people. So.
And same here with your situation in Bakersfield, and what they did to you, brother, is beyond belief.
Yeah, I know what you mean by nerve damage and the wrist, because they did that to me too, and I had.
Yeah, and we have that all on film too, of your injuries.
And I think that went on for a long, long time for me, and I know. You're a musician. We played one of your songs earlier. Or songstress, they like to call you on that other show. And
yeah,
that's a new word for me.
I call myself a songster. Because I like to stir things up a little bit.
So
I just can't help it. Well, something comes over me when authorities approach me, and because I am well studied in law and who I am, and have laid a foundation and claimed my own body back from the system and life and family and belongings, I can stand in my stead much easier than stand upon the foundation I've laid, which a lot of people just, wait till the last minute to learn some of these concepts and rough them in, but they, when they're actually confronted by authorities, they, they can say certain things like, well, I'm a sovereign or whatever, and I don't have to follow the law. They don't know how to back any of that up. And judges are very good at bluffing. Cops don't know what they're doing. They're just going from a script. And I encourage people not to ever act like me if they don't know how to back it up, and don't know who they are really in that sense of being free. There are Supreme Court rulings that they have to follow to say no one is bound to identify themselves to anyone without a proper cause of action and a warrant, a signed warrant, sworn warrant. They cannot arrest you or detain you or anything without a contract and without a warrant. They cannot search you or anything. So these are all going to be things that will come out in the wash over the course of this case, that they searched me without a warrant, arrested me without a warrant. It was false imprisonment, false arrest, all of these things. And assault with a deadly weapon and life threats. Act of war. Because they are foreign. You have to remember this. If they're speaking a foreign language, they are foreign entities, which falls under trading with the enemy and treason, and can carry a death sentence to them and life in prison and or.
I know that it sounds
I know this is
bizarre.
kind of heavy, but I hope it doesn't get you flagged or anything that I say.
I've said a lot more extreme things on this show.
Yes, you have.
And
It's
somehow I'm
amazing.
still on.
I don't know how they haven't shut you down, but yay, let's just put the little caveat in there. This is all for entertainment purposes only.
Wink.
Wink, wink. A nod is as good as a wink to a blind bat.
What?
A nod is as good as a wink to a blind bat.
Wow. Well, it's getting hot in here, and I'm even using LED
I see
lights.
we've been on over 2 hours already, so maybe we'll want to wrap it up.
Yeah, I think so. We've got about 8 people watching. I want to say thank you to all of you, Aunt Vax and Corey Hills. People have said hi in the chat room. It's a delight to have an audience.
Yes, and thank you all too for showing up. And I know this was last minute that I posted the show, and I'm sure it's going to go far and wide.
Yeah.
People will share, and we'll do this again soon.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about the town there.
I'll tell you, Canyon City is where they have the prison museum, and it's also called Fremont County, ironically. And they have 5 prisons there, and some of them are very high-profile prisoners, like the 93 World Trade Center bomber, Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm not sure if any of these people are still alive now, but it's known for its very high-profile, famous prisoners, criminals. And they have a prison museum there. It's very famous for that also. I would call it the prison capital of the United States. Canyon
Yikes.
City, Colorado. And their jail is very militarized and foreign entities running it, and foreign to the U.S. actually.
What do they have? Like a shopping mall? Is it farmlands or?
It's a small town. It has a really unique, very ancient architecture. on the outskirts. A railroad runs through it with a park along the railroad through a river. It's real pretty in the park. The main highway going through it is Highway 50, and it's lined with a lot of mainstream Land kind of businesses, But when you get off onto the older main streets, it's very quaint with antique stores and all the houses and buildings surrounding are really architecturally amazing, like churches and cathedrals and a lot of that going on. When I first went to the town years ago, they had a huge nativity scene, a giant nativity scene up on the hillside overlooking the town.
Wow.
So it's very religious and
Is it the largest city nearby, or is there a larger city?
Yes, it's the largest one closest to me. The next, I'm also near Pueblo, Colorado, which is one of the most high crime areas in all of Colorado, and about an hour away from Colorado Springs, which is a pretty big city.
Emil writes...
2 hours south of Denver. I'm not real close to Denver. It's more in the southern part of Colorado.
Emily writes, what I find interesting that gets overlooked regarding cryptocurrency is partial founder Brock Pierce and and then the connection with that, like pedophilia or something. So yeah, that's
right. I understand people's concerns over cryptos, that it being the world government currency, of the future and the mark of the beast and all that, and the people behind it, but I also believe that we have to use some way to transition people out of that money mindset, and a good way is for them to learn how to use cryptos, because that gives them a sense of controlling their own wealth, and from there they can realize that they can control it without the US dollar note conversion system. Eventually transition to that.
What ends
awareness.
up happening with the concerns about human trafficking, pedophilia, and all this is people are concerned because there's the ability to transmit money without any government interference, and I understand that scares some people, but money is transmitting with paper dollars, and
right. Think
there's
of the word
no
revenue.
difference. Revenue.
Break down the word revenue. It's revenue. They're scooping people off of the streets, putting them in these prisons for profit, and then recycling them through the system. Letting them go, putting them back in, keeping them drug addicted, so on and so forth. I believe that, this could definitely put a watchful eye over me, but to say this, but I believe they're fronts for human trafficking.
What the prisons, or
yes, and also like if you look back at the fires in California and all the people who were burned out their homes in the Paradise Fires, and then they allegedly set up FEMA camps and stuff for these people. The people didn't even end up in the FEMA camps; they just disappeared completely, and a lot of them were homeless, made homeless. And they just disappeared off the face of the earth. And I believe they were scooped up into these prisons and trafficked.
There's a lot of dark things surrounding all of this speculation, and it is, it can't be just dismissed. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many
It's
people.
a giant psychological warfare operation in human guinea pig uh, operation.
Oh, Emily says Pierce's den was featured in the documentary An Open Secret, not surprisingly suppressed. Thanks, Emily. I'll look into that. I met Brock Pierce in Las Vegas at Coin Agenda, and I briefly got to talk to him there, and he gave me a couple minutes, and I described the concepts of remedy coin to him. He has created a bank in Puerto Rico, and this is the bank that backs the cryptocurrency known as Tether. And so he's doing some interesting things in the crypto sphere. I know he was also. Hi, my brother Bob just tuned in. Good to see you out there, Bob. But Brock, no. Oh, she said hi, Bob. So Brock was in this thing, The Mighty Ducks. It was a Disney film when he was very young, and so he was exposed into the world of Hollywood, and probably was inappropriately handled or something. So these things happen, and I'm always trying to work to try to eliminate everybody's trauma. I mean, heck, I've even done shows where I've done biofield tuning on probably one of the most evil men of the last 100 years, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, and amazingly, some woman tuned in when I was doing the show, and I was talking about removing bad behaviors, and she starts feeling like a heart attack, and but her intuition tells her stay with it, and
Mm-hmm.
I was speaking, and it kind of calmed her out and stuff, but it extracted, my intuition of extracting bad behaviors from Henry Kissinger had the side benefit of extracting, kind of an anger, aggressive part of her life, and so it was just amazing. She had to remain anonymous because of professional reasons, but she wrote a really big piece in my for my testimonials page.
Great. Yeah, I also had a lot of revelations while I was incarcerated too, and I read some books in there. Of course, they bombard you with all kinds of religious propaganda books. Even another version of the Bible called the NIV, which the very first page of it says this is a drama on the acts of the Bible, and that's the Bible the chaplain in the jails provides for people. And another book I read, The Grace of Les Miserables, a Christian synopsis of the famous book, Les Miserables. And I gleaned a lot of insight reading that book to how this whole religious system works and it brought so much to light to me how they operate upon their economy is based upon the sword, and the new economy that we can manifest will be based in the seed and planting seeds and creating abundance for each other, not in marketplaces or based in their commerce system, but putting down the sword by which their economy is based currently. And it wrapped up the whole book was something about the 3 gardens. It started with the Garden of Eden, and then the garden that we create in our lives to create abundance, to give away for free and provide for each other, and then the garden of heaven on earth in the end times. It was very profound. In fact, we bought the book, and we also bought 2 copies, one to send to Soul's mother.
I think that we can think of other people in the world as enemies of or promoters of evil, these types of things. But if we can learn to forgive one another in a way where we can assert what we think was done, yet put the person who did the evil back in honor, and actually create something that enforces the barrier of the separation of what a person does with who they are, and and use the purifying fire of forgiveness, to kind of cleanse the reputation of somebody once it all comes out. I mean, because what about rehabilitation, all this kind of stuff? How do you move forward? And
right, I put forth ideas to people who are fighting other, cases, and I'm like, well, this is a way that you could go about it. You could forgive them, and by their silence, they acquiesce to that and agree to monetize it, the damages, in a crypto.
right.
But they're like, they're so indoctrinated and still stuck in that monetary motivation.
Well, it doesn't have to be a crypto. It can be, printed sheets of money.
Right.
A million, a million pieces of Monopoly money, and then
their response typically, I'm not forgiving them. I'm going to sue those bastards. And it's motivated by money, and that's all people can see. They can't see past that.
Yep.
And so this is a very difficult task we're faced with to
forgiving.
bring that mind.
Forgiving is suing them. It is suing them for money. It is making them accountable to the damages. It's making them be a witness, and it's making your opponent be a witness to the fact that you have the right to issue that much money to cover the damages that they did to you. It's right, really it's strong arming.
If it's not truly based in justice and what's good and right and bringing abundance to all, and rather based in motivation of money and what they're going to get out of it, we're it's going to be a long haul to get there.
What they're confusing the word forgiveness with is foregoing. They're thinking of foregoing all of the damages.
Right.
This style of forgiveness is different. It doesn't forego. It actually holds an accounting for what's done, and then it enables our listeners or anybody to take part in an economy of stated worth, where they can move tiny pieces of something that's huge, and they can represent represent the price of a transaction to buy a stack of pick to buy a pack of
But
gum.
this whole mindset of money motivation by people, they're keeping each other in that mindset,
Yes.
not allowing themselves to grow and see how we can come together and really create true abundance for each other. Um, but as long as it's only self-centered and what they're going to get out of something, they'll keep their neighbors and brothers
Maybe,
and sisters
maybe you,
locked into that
maybe
mindset.
you can address this again, Star. Aunt Ivax says, pretty hard when that person won't listen and ignores you, though.
Right, right. Based on their own belief systems, which it's hard to get people out of those beliefs and to even look at something another way. And until they do, they're all keeping each other locked into that. And and they're endeared to their masters and controllers, and they want to enslave you also because it's like
I
you
think
know
she's referring
so
to.
I have to pay my taxes. What makes you think you don't have to? And the way you turn that around on them is, I don't have to pay taxes. What makes you think you do?
Mm-hmm. Let's see. I think what she meant is pretty hard when a person won't listen and ignores you, though. I think that's talking about the notices. When you send notices and a person just ignores them.
Right. So you make sure to include in the wording in your notices that their silence is their acquiescence, and it's equated with fraud when they otherwise have a duty to speak and may come back later and cause injury. Their silence is their acquiescence. They even say that when you're in jail and you make phone calls, and they say these calls are monitored and your silence is your agreement. And so when you give them notices and they don't respond to them, well, it's already written into the notice that their silence is their agreement. And now they've fully contracted with you according to your notices and agreed to them. And thus you then can default them and give them a second chance. Maybe they threw it in the trash and didn't actually look at it. Give them another chance to dispute anything. A claim undisputed stands as law. That's a maxim. So when they remain silent, they agree. They are in full contract with you, and you should state that in your notices that by their silence they agree, and by their non-disputal they agree, and they agree that what you have set forth is now a matter of law and stands. And then you stand upon that forever after.
Yeah. So
Stop
maybe it isn't about maybe if I can take the word forgiveness away when I'm talking about dealing with the damage someone caused me, and I choose to pay for. I choose to pay myself for all of the damage that they did. Essentially, I am financially backing the person who caused all this damage to me, and I'm
right. And
mm-hmm.
here's another thing: if you make sure that whenever you serve things like this on people, that you have proof of service. That is giving them due process of law, even though they don't give you any. You give them due process of law by serving them properly and lawfully, and you have proofs of those services, either by a witness who served it on them personally, or by a signed mail receipt that got into their hand and they received it. They can never come back and prove that they responded to you, because they won't respond. If they did respond, they would be admitting their fraud, that they have no authority over you. That's the only thing they could respond with. And that's all under color and fraud by force. They assumed authority over you by force. So you're giving them an opportunity to prove they have authority with evidence. And they can't come forward with any evidence because it was all gotten by deception. And so their silence is acquiescence, and they've been properly served, and you have the proofs of service. You keep those records safe. And they can never prove that they responded to you or disputed anything. And so a claim undisputed stands as law. They have fully contracted you with you by their silence.
And my invention in this through Remedy Coin is the idea that the only, when I put in my notices to them, I can say the only way they can dispute or object to my offer to settle the matter is if they transmit a small piece of Bitcoin to an empty wallet address that I provide. And when the deadline comes and they haven't objected in any way, the wallet address remains empty, and that's about the hardest evidence you can have on the planet. Is that the Bitcoin blockchain, a certain wallet address was empty at the deadline. It's indisputable. It's immutable. There's no way they can, cook the books and go back and say, oh yeah, it was paid to object.
Which is another thing they do. They tamper with evidence, they tamper with the record, and they tamper with witnesses. So this is why we have to make our own records and our own publishing venues for people to be able to make record, an open record, not a public record, because public is also a government construct. We have to make things open source for all to view.
So you like the word open as opposed to public?
Yes.
Would you like to elaborate on that some more?
Yeah, my brain's getting a little foggy here.
Yeah. That's fine.
But I think people can sort of wrap their heads around the difference if they understand what public means. Public means private, but it's a government construct. It's not exactly the same thing as just open view.
Right. Public, to us, seems to imply the admission of government being legitimate.
Right, that they're a member of the public, which is a member of government. And they're not private, because public means the opposite of private. That they have foregone their privacy and agree that they are a member of.
Some comments out there. Anti-vax, thanks for other things. Deception, that is the key word. Yes, that was the only evidence I needed. It was certainly, as you say, empty. Let's see. And she wrote, I suppose if I forgive them, I can feel free and move on. It's not about really feeling free and releasing it all. Actually, I already feel free and have somewhat of a better experience in my life regarding the police, trying to kill me in Bakersfield.
Right.
Just by the idea that I'm prepared to forgive them, I feel better. I mean, I envision someday having a nice time with the cop that stomped on my head. It's liberating to have those kinds of ideas that, at some point there'll be more enlightenment about all of this stuff.
Right. If we're just focused on getting even with them and how we're gonna sue them and get money out of them, and we may very well do that, but we have to keep ourselves in the truth and honor, and not enter into their jurisdictions by by keeping ourselves as sovereign, which the unanimous Declaration of Independence, 1776, declares that we're all created equal, and the government derives its powers from our consent. And when you don't consent, you have nullified all of that. When you don't consent to their powers, because they get them from you, how can they possibly wield them over you when you are the superseding authority, that, consent of the governed? Consent means contract. And if you don't consent, then you don't have any contract of the government over you.
Beautiful. Star, thank you so much for coming on and doing this show with me today.
You're welcome, and thank you, Joey.
All right. We all from the audience, we send you our love, Star, and we're going to be watching carefully what goes on there.
Big hugs to everybody out there. Thank you.
And you're not alone. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Star. Goodbye for now.
Okay. Aloha for now.
So that was Star Hills from Canyon City, Colorado, and we'll be watching what progresses there. The show's a production of ForgivenessCapital.com, promoting the infinite worth of every individual and promoting money based on good works, acts of forgiveness, projects, that type of thing. And I encourage you to come back again, to subscribe to the show, and we'll work on making a better world. Thank you all so much, and goodbye for now.